The craziest thing about Sonic the Hedgehog 4 right now is that it doesn't even feel like some distant project anymore. March 2027 is officially locked in by Paramount, and production has already kicked off more than a year ahead of release. That alone tells you this isn't a rushed sequel. They know exactly what they're building toward. There were rumors floating around about a late December 2027 slot at one point, which is why that date still pops up online, but March is the real target. Sonic is basically claiming early spring for himself. The first production photo set the tone immediately. Director Jeff Fowler is back like always, and in the image he's holding Amy Rose's hammer. That's not subtle. After the Sonic 3 post-credits tease, we already knew Amy would matter, but this confirms she's not just cameo material. She's central, and the fact that Fowler himself is posing with her weapon feels intentional. Like he's telling fans this movie revolves around her in a major way. Now here's where things get wild. Insider Daniel Reichman has shared plot details claiming that Amy arrives from an alternate future or even another Earth where Robotnik and Metal Sonic rule the world. In that version of reality, everything has gone wrong. Amy travels across the multiverse to prevent that dystopian outcome. If that's true, this is a completely new take on her origin. In the games, especially in Sonic CD, she's not from a ruined future. She's introduced as Sonic's admirer who gets caught up in time travel chaos. She moves through time, yes, but she's not some battle-hardened warrior from a fallen timeline, and that change feels deliberate, because the second you hear a hero from the future trying to rewrite history, you think about Silver the Hedgehog. In that story, Silver comes from a devastated future to stop disaster before it happens. So if Sonic 4 is giving that role to Amy, then it looks like the writers are merging storylines. Instead of introducing Silver right away, they might be folding elements of his arc into Amy's. That's actually smart for a movie universe. It keeps the cast manageable while still pulling from the deeper lore. And let's talk about those writers for a second. Pat Casey and Josh Miller have already hinted that Amy was originally supposed to have a much bigger presence in Sonic 3. What we got was just a tease. They've also said they have a long-term plan mapped out, and honestly, you can feel that. The post-credits scenes in these movies are not random fan service. They're chess moves. Sonic 3 pulled heavily from Sonic Adventure 2 with Shadow and the Space Station storyline, so following that pattern, Sonic 4 leaning into Sonic CD makes perfect sense. In Sonic CD, Sonic travels through different time periods using the Time Stones to prevent a bad future controlled by Eggman and enforced by Metal Sonic. That dystopian imagery, alternate timelines, ruined cities, all of it lines up perfectly with what's being rumored. And apparently this movie is getting a noticeably bigger budget than the previous entries. If that's true, then multiverse visuals, large-scale future cities, and more ambitious sci-fi concepts suddenly feel way more achievable. Now we have to address the Robotnik situation. At the end of Sonic 3, it looked like he died, but we never saw a body. And in blockbuster logic, no body basically means pending return. Jim Carrey has been the chaotic backbone of this franchise since the beginning. Back in 2022, he talked about stepping away from acting, but that didn't stick. He came back for Sonic 3 in 2024, and later mentioned he'd be open to returning again if the story made sense. That alone keeps the door wide open. Sonic 3 also introduced Gerald Robotnik, which quietly expands the timeline possibilities. Once you bring in family legacy, alternate versions, and advanced tech from different eras, you're basically inviting time travel into the narrative. And then there's the leaked concept art from Sonic 3 that never made it to screen. Some of that artwork showed Metal Sonic standing beside an imposing Emperor Eggman figure, with heavy hints of parallel universes. Those ideas were cut from the third movie, but they clearly weren't scrapped. They feel saved. One of the craziest fan theories right now revolves around that Emperor Eggman design. What if it's not actually Eggman? In Sonic Heroes, Neo Metal Sonic evolves beyond his original programming. He can copy abilities, manipulate others, and even disguise himself as Eggman. Imagine Sonic 4 building up this tyrannical ruler of a destroyed future, only to reveal it's been Neo Metal Sonic all along. That would be such a bold twist. It would also elevate Metal Sonic from henchman to mastermind, which the movies haven't fully explored yet. A lot of that speculation connects back to Sonic CD and the Time Stones. In that story, Eggman manipulates time itself, creating bad futures that Sonic has to prevent. If the movie leans into that DNA, it opens the door for dystopian timelines where Eggman actually wins, and those leaked visuals of an Emperor Eggman design only pour gasoline on that idea. This version doesn't look like the usual chaotic genius. He looks mythic, almost like some cyberpunk warlord ruling from a futuristic temple. It's a total evolution of the character. Then you add Metal Sonic into the mix. If he's serving as the Emperor's right hand in a broken timeline, the tone automatically gets darker. As for the core cast, some things are basically guaranteed. Ben Schwartz as Sonic is non-negotiable, James Marsden and Tika Sumpter will likely return as Tom and Maddie, the emotional anchor of the series, Idris Elba as Knuckles and Colleen O'Shaughnessy as Tails round out the main team. That foundation isn't changing. The human element plus the core Sonic trio is the formula that works. What does change is the scale. If Amy really is coming from a broken future, ruled by Robotnik and Metal Sonic, then Sonic 4 stops being just another adventure and becomes a Save the Multiverse story. That's a massive escalation, and it fits with where the franchise is heading. Each film has grown bigger. Sonic 1 was a road trip, Sonic 2 expanded the world and introduced Knuckles. Sonic 3 brought in Shadow and went more cosmic. Sonic 4 going full-time travel dystopia feels like the natural next step. And here's something that makes this even more interesting. If Amy is the one who knows how everything falls apart, she might be the emotional driver this time, not Sonic. That flips the dynamic. Instead of Sonic teaching someone else about hope and heroism, he might be the one who needs convincing that the future is worth fighting for. That would give Amy real depth instead of just making her the energetic fangirl archetype from the early games. This isn't just about adding another character. It's about expanding the mythology, time travel, alternate Earths, potentially Neo-Metal Sonic pulling the strings, and the possible return of Robotnik in some form. The franchise started as a lighthearted video game adaptation. Now it's flirting with full sci-fi epic territory. And honestly, that evolution feels earned. Sonic has always been about speed, but this movie might finally show how far this universe can really go. It's honestly crazy to look at how far this franchise has come. Back in 2020, when the first Sonic movie hit theaters, it felt like a cautious gamble from Paramount. After the redesign drama and all the internet chaos, nobody really knew if this blue hedgehog could carry a cinematic universe. Now fast forward, and not only are we getting Sonic the Hedgehog 4, but there's also another theatrical spin-off quietly in development. That's not a studio testing the waters anymore. That's confidence. A huge part of that stability comes down to Jeff Fowler. While other franchises swap directors every other sequel and end up losing their tone, Fowler has basically become the heartbeat of these movies. He understands the games, he respects the fan base, and he knows how to balance goofy energy with genuine character moments. At this point, his name is almost inseparable from the Sonic brand on the big screen. The fact that the same creative team is returning again says everything about how much trust the studio has in this world they've built. With Ben Schwartz back as Sonic and Idris Elba continuing as Knuckles, the core energy stays intact. Their chemistry already proved it can handle both comedy and heavier themes. If the story shifts into darker territory with broken futures and collapsing timelines, that contrast could actually elevate the whole thing. Sonic's optimism hits harder when the world around him is falling apart. Outside the main storyline, Paramount is clearly thinking long-term. The Knuckles series showed that this universe can stretch onto streaming without losing momentum. Now you can almost see the blueprint forming. Standalone films for major characters, shared villains crossing between projects, maybe years down the line, a massive team-up event that pulls everything together. And the wild part is that it doesn't feel forced. It feels like the natural next stage. What started as a nervous experiment has turned into a full-blown cinematic universe that actually understands its source material. If they stick the landing on this timeline-shattering chapter, Sonic won't just be surviving in Hollywood, he'll be setting the pace.